I have a very special guest today. Hediye has been on this show before, but today she's going to share some other parts of her testimony and experiences living as a Muslim, marrying another Muslim with us today. That is going to be a lot of good information for a lot of people, and I believe it's going to help a lot of people. So, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and share this program with everywhere, all of the places that you could possibly think about it. We call this show Forsaking My Father's Religion because I actually wrote a book called Forsaking My Father's Religion. And if you watching us from United States, I'll be glad to send you a copy free of charge. If you go to our website, iranchristians.org, go to the free tab, it says free book, click on the tab, fill the form, and I'll be glad to send the book to you free of charge, a hard copy. And if you're outside of the United States, we have the electronic versions in seven languages actually now: Portuguese, Spanish, Japanese, which is the latest one, and then we have it in Korean, Russian, and French. So we covered almost the whole earth, Hediye, if you believe it or not. One day when I was writing this book, I was like, who is gonna read it? My
Oh, look at
little,
that.
my little bitty faith that I had, I released it in the hand of God, just like that
Mm.
kid with two fishes and five loaves of bread. And he multiplied it and is going all over the world. So, but
That's awesome.
before any more introduction and further ado, I just want to say, Hedia, thank you so much for accepting my invitation, coming on this show, sharing your testimony and sharing and telling us what was it like to be married to a Muslim. Please introduce yourself and tell us what is your ministry. Of course, the ministry's name and website is in the description of this video. And tell us your story. Remind us your testimony a little bit, and then go to the subject that we're going to cover today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mohammed. My testimony, I was a devout Muslim, came to Christ from YouTube. Actually, no one preached the gospel to me. I was in a desperate place, and Jesus came and met me where I was. And it
Great.
was just a miraculous conversion. So I'm super grateful for all that he's doing in and through me. I have a ministry called resurrectministry.com. I
Mhm.
do a devotional, a podcast with my husband called the Living Fearless Devotional. I have an upcoming book called Living Fearless in Christ. And so it's just been a wild ride. And I'm truly grateful for all that the Lord has done and continues to do in my life. I think this is a really important subject. If people who watched the last episode we did together, you know that I field questions from people from all over the world, all walks of life, whether it's family members that are going into Islam, children that are in Islam that parents are, of course, devastated by, and they ask me all kinds of questions, and I field all kinds of information. And one of the most significant topics is this issue of Christians marrying Muslims,
Yep.
and they asked my perspective about it. And a lot of them very innocently, naively wonder why it is such a problem, especially when the husband says, you don't have to convert. And so that to them means, oh, well, what's the problem? If I can maintain my Christianity, then what is the problem? And so I definitely want to address that. But I think you want me to start with my own experience in
Yeah,
marriage to a
absolutely. I
Muslim,
think
correct?
that's very, very powerful. As I recall, in our first time you were on this show, you shared your testimony and details, which I will include in a card right here on this show. That if people want to watch that, they can find it. You shared that you were born and raised in a very secular Muslim family, and
Yes.
you pretty much started in America into an Iranian family that they were educated, they were secular. You went to the university, and because of things that you witnessed and experienced, especially among Muslims, and then eventually your job, you being a secular girl that used a secular Muslim that used to party and live her life, now you found yourself that you're a devout Muslim.
Yes.
And tell us how that happened, and then how did you get yourself into a marriage, or I mean, quotation, marriage, and share all of that to us, because I think it's going to be a powerful, powerful story and testimony, which is going to help a lot of people.
So I came to Islam in college, and as a consequence, without a cultural experience or a background or a family to kind of guide you, you end up with this kind of it's really luck of the draw, quite frankly, especially in Islam. It was a time when there was a lot of extremist groups. And that's the first Islam I encountered. And I ended up really repulsed by that because I was a patriotic American. I wasn't anti Semitic, so I wasn't looking to fight the powers, so to speak. I ended up in a spiritual community known as the Sufis. And it was because I wanted to do it with 150% of my being. I really loved the discipline, the order. I thought it was going to transform my life. It was going to bring peace and stability to my life. And so I went into it 150%. And it wasn't long after that that someone close to me suggested that I marry somebody that was already married. So I would have been a second wife. And people don't realize, people always, God bless my Christian friends, are always like, were you in Saudi Arabia? And I was like, no, I was in Southern California. This didn't happen in Saudi Arabia. And if you knew that there are thousands of Muslim women in the United States that are in these illegal polygamous relationships in the Muslim world, you'd be very surprised at how
Almost
many
unreal. It's almost unbelievable. But I have heard so many stories and so many things that people, especially those people, don't dare to share. Usually, it's their families or their loved ones that they contact our
Yes.
ministries and share that this is the situation. What can we do for them? And I think your story is going to help addressing those issues.
Absolutely. And my parents didn't know. Nobody in my family knew. And it was actually when my mom found out, she fainted. So it was devastating because
I mean,
and the
if you
thing
were
is,
my sister, you're my sister in the Lord. But if you were my sister, I would have fainted. I'm like, how could this even happen to us as a family? How could this? We send you to college, we sent you to university to get educated, and go up the ladder of the educations and become who you want to become, and then now you married a Muslim, not even being married, you're a second wife to a Muslim here in the United States. It's I would have fainted.
and I tell you though, the other women that I had met that were secretly living the same life, these were not like country bumpkins, so to speak. These were educated, often, like independent women, and they had told themselves the same lie I had told myself, which is, what's the big deal? You don't have to be around him 24/7. You end up with a lot of freedom. It's not going to, it's like having a boyfriend. We literally rationalize to ourselves why it's okay, despite the
And then
fact that
also
it's
you're
illegal and
fulfilling
destructive.
the Sharia of Islam. It's not like only those
Exactly.
things, because then if you a boyfriend, girlfriend, oh, in Islam, that's haram, haram. But
Right.
a mut'ah, a second wife, a temporary marriage, that's halal. That is, we're fulfilling Allah's desires.
Yes, legalized dating. Yes,
It is
yes. It's
legalized
really
fornication and adultery.
legalized fornication, exactly.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly, and as a consequence, of course, I can look back on it now and explain, all the problems with it, but the most important things I think are, and this is what happened to a number of my friends, where you get married, even if when you are the first wife, you get married and the man tells you, "I would never take a second wife." Don't worry about that. That's not going to happen. Inevitably, almost every single woman I grew up with in that situation, the husband ended up taking a second wife because it's culturally acceptable. His friends accept it. He knows under Islamic law that's permissible, sometimes even encouraged. And so as a woman ages, or let's say her body type changes, a man starts to stray, and then the woman has no recourse to stop it. And
And I
it
think, Hediat, is there's another very how do I call it, diabolic thought that comes to the mind of a man, that if I create competition, I will have a better life in between the spouses, the wives. The more wives I have,
Right.
the more competition they will have, the more I will be served. I think that's
Yes.
another aspect into this, weaved into this polygamy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the most devastating consequences is if the relationship doesn't work out, if there's children produced, there are no legal rights. So you'd have to go through the process of establishing paternity and then claiming rights only for the child, but there are no marital rights. And in fact, if you were to try to fight over the fact that there were marital rights, then you're a polygamist, which is illegal for either party to do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
you're basically stuck in this cage where you're not you have no recourse in terms of
Mhm.
wanting to get out. And oftentimes if there are children produced, most non-Muslim women or even Muslim women think that they'll get possession of the children, but under Islamic law you won't. So
You
once
won't.
the child reaches the age of puberty, which in Islam is 7 or 8 years old depending on it's a male or female child, the child is supposed to go to the man.
Yep.
And this also becomes a very devastating reality for a divorced Muslim woman. And that would, of course, happen to a Christian woman as well. Another issue is in raising the children. So if a woman thinks that she's going to maintain her Christian faith, in my situation, my daughter, she was I had to impose upon her the religious strictness that I had because my husband had the same requirements. He expected me to raise her, even though he had no interaction with her. He expected me to raise her in the Islamic tradition. So that's another burden on a parent where the child has absolutely no rights to choose whether they want to fast, whether they want to cover. You're forced to impose those same standards on that child. Again, this does not matter whether you're Christian or Muslim in that marriage. If you are Christian, the kids will follow the husband's religion.
Exactly.
I think that's another misconception that Christians have when they marry a Muslim man. Oh, it's okay. He says we can raise them both. He will be ostracized from his family. There is no way he could allow his children, if he has any connection to his family, to be raised as Christians. He has
Mhm.
an obligation, according to culture and to religious law, to raise them as Muslims.
Mhm.
Don't you agree with that?
I totally agree with what you said. The kids, of course, belong to the husband in Islam. Mom gets absolutely nothing, and then the duty of that mom, the duty of that wife, first, second, third, fourth, whatever, it is to raise good Muslim kids.
Right.
I've grown up. You grow up here in the U.S. in the West. I was in Middle East. I was in the heart of these things. And then when my aunt and uncle got divorced, I mean the kids just by default they just go to my uncle, and my aunt just brought home nothing but shame and guilt, and it was always her fault, because if she was a good Muslim woman, that man would have
Yeah.
stayed. It's because it's her fault. So another thing I want to point out, because some people, I've heard this. I just want people to know that they say, well, if somebody is stupid enough, we'll do something like that. Go and marry. Uh, I mean, they're good Christians, but if they're stupid enough, uneducated, type of Bedouin villagers, country people, hillbilly, whatever terminology you want to use it, that these type of people usually go married Muslims, or these type of Christians usually go become someone's second wife or whatever. I mean, educated, smart people, that would never happen. Can you tell us, when you were going to become a good Muslim, what type of education were you getting, and where were you headed? And that the audience know you
I
weren't one of these people that.
No, I grew up in Beverly Hills. I came from a very wealthy family. I had just graduated law school. I had a wonderful career ahead of me. And that almost fed into it because I was told by the men in my family I was too strong. I would never be a traditional housewife. That, this notion, the kind of curse that was put over me was you'll never fit that mold. So when the opportunity presented itself that you don't have to fit that mold, you're actually perfect for this alternative mold that Islam creates. I was like, okay, that makes sense. I literally rationalized myself into the position because my
Wow.
heart was so burdened by the fact that I couldn't achieve any normalcy. I wouldn't have a normal marriage. So I might as well take this other option. It was basically door number 2 or nothing.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important for people to understand that, because the women who have suffered through this that I've spoken to over the years had similar stories. In other words, they were either divorced or they also were strong women, lawyers, doctors, other women who felt like in a tradition. And oftentimes you have to understand that a woman that is in a successful career does have limited options because Muslim men don't like very strong women. They're hard to control, and so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that they end up in these alternative relationships because the traditional Muslim man doesn't want to marry them. And so by default, you end up in these strange kind of alternatives that, quite frankly, the community tells you is not strange. Of course, the first wives will say this is horrible, we don't permit it, but you know there's hundreds of years of Islamic history where it happened, and that it was accepted. And in most Muslim countries, it is permissible under the law. So it is affirmed culturally and religiously. So it's not so strange. I mean, one thing when I was going through therapy, and my therapist was trying to wrap her head around, I see you, Hedia, that this woman in front of me, I don't understand how this woman did that. And so her conclusion was, you have a disorder. Like you you have
It
you're
can be.
disassociated.
This is not normal. We have studied thousand years of histories and cases. We don't have a person with this type of character, education,
Right.
family would do
You must be
something
crazy.
this crazy. It has
You
to
have
be
this
a new disorder. Did she call it anything?
She called it dissociative disorder. And I'll tell you why. So, dissociative disorder means that you have the ability to separate out circumstances in your life without emotion. In other words, you make these decisions and you disassociate yourself from the consequences of those decisions in a very almost like a diabolical way. In other words, you don't allow them to hurt you, you don't cry over them, you don't get emotional because you've managed to kind of create this separation in your mind over what's right and what's wrong.
I mean,
And
in the
it,
layman's terminology,
it made a little sense because it's basically saying that you talk yourself into it and you don't listen to the little voice inside of you. The way she described it was, you don't listen to the little girl in you saying, no, no, I don't want to do this, this isn't
your
right.
conscience telling you you shouldn't do
Yes.
it. In a layman's terminology, English is my third language, so let me help you. What is this uh, condition? What's this condition called? It's called self deceiving. You
Yes.
just deceive yourself that I'm going to be okay. This condition is going to be different, and this is going to fit for me. And well, I'm a strong woman, and I won't be a housewife ever. Therefore, it is says you just talk yourself into self deception, and then you go for it.
Yes.
So now walk
Yes.
us through. So now you went to the mosque, get married, or the imam came to your home, or the sheikh.
Come to the
How?
home. They
Oh,
they come to
so
the home because you can't, it's not publicly known because we're in the
mhm.
States, right? So it's, you just bring 2 witnesses and a friend to read the marriage vows over you.
The nikah
Yeah, the nikah.
surah. So he comes over, this imam with this turban on his head, and then recites something that both of you don't understand because you speak English. He spoke English, maybe Urdu or something. Where was he from originally?
He was Asian. He was
Huh?
Asian. So he was
Asian.
Asian. So he spoke one of the I don't want to say what country, but one of the
Okay.
Asian languages in Arabic. So he understood.
So he understood. That's the
Yes.
first Muslim I've ever met in my life that understood what Arabic said. So this guy comes and recites something, and then you're married now. You can go and
Yes,
wow.
that's it.
And then
And you don't have the
you told
papers,
none
right?
of your family members. There was no one that you
No.
dared to tell. Okay. So tell us, how did it go after now? I think the imam left and we're married, I guess. So what does this marriage looks
Well, and
like?
then you consummate the marriage, and
Mhm.
but we didn't live in the same country for most of the time. So we were meeting in either a foreign country or in one of the states in the United States. It was a long distance relationship as well.
Yeah. And he had his wife and his children in the
Family
other
and
country.
yes, yes,
That is something. Wow. And you agreed with all
yeah.
of this.
I'm sorry to say, but yes.
Wow.
It's not
So
it's not easy to admit because I some of your viewers, I don't know if it was your viewers or Sean, that was it just really upset at me and texting in the chat saying, "How could you do that to your kid?" And I was like, "Well, nobody sets out wanting to do this to their kid. You I actually was told for most of my adult life I'd never have kids. So I didn't set up this relationship to create a child as a result of it. And then later, miraculously, literally, I was in the middle of the war in 2006 in Beirut, and I felt very, very sick. I went to the emergency room, and they told me I was pregnant. So it was just an absolute shock. Turns out to be quite a miracle for me, but I didn't set out to create a child in that situation.
wow.
But so, but I came back to the States to make sure that my daughter was born in the United States. But the thing is that and the reason I didn't lose my wits because I made sure I actually did not put his name on her birth certificate because I knew under Islamic law he would have rights to the child, and so I wanted to make sure that no matter what happened, that he would never be able to exert those rights over my child as long as we stayed in the United States.
Wow.
So I didn't put his name on
Okay.
her birth certificate.
How long this marriage um, lasted?
25 years.
Wow. I'm about to throw myself off this. If this wasn't a live show, God knows.
I don't. People say, "How did you stay so long?" I had an amazing career. It just day after day, life just continued. It didn't occur to me. It wasn't. It wasn't important. It wasn't on my radar. It was literally only once Islam started to unravel that it occurred to me that I was messed up. It was like the Veil tour, like the Islam unraveled almost instantaneously, and as soon as Islam unraveled, I left, and as a consequence of leaving, I lost everything and everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't an easy decision, but up until that point it didn't occur to me. They were all a neat little package. As difficult as it was a package.
Wow. So, 25 years in this marriage, you have a child from it. And then when your family realized, well, we're grandparents, I guess. So, what did they, how did you describe it to them? Like, I'm married to Muslim, or did you ever?
Yeah, I said that he lives he lives far away, and yes, I go visit him, and they were just so excited that I had a child because I was 37 years old, and they had also known that the doctors told me I'd never have a child. So they were just so excited I was able to conceive. They didn't ask a lot of questions. I was living in DC. I was far from them. I only saw them once or twice a year. So they were just happy. They didn't ask too many questions. They didn't really worry about it. I had a plausible explanation. And I don't know how your family is, but there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in Muslim families.
Mhm.
Like they pretend like they don't see, and oftentimes they
Yep.
prefer you don't tell them. Like they'd rather you pretend that everything is fine. And so I just continued doing that. I knew that's what they wanted, and I just continued doing that. And it didn't matter until it came crashing down.
Wow. Wow. So 25 years, you have a child, and how was the marriage in general? If you speak about it now, when you're out of it, how was the marriage in general? Was there any love? Was there any respect? Um, of course, it was a distant marriage. Can you describe all of that to us?
Yeah, I would say there was love, there was respect, there was a friendship. We liked each other as people, which was nice. I'm lucky in that sense. But there was always a disconnect because I wasn't born into this life, so I always felt like I was faking it. The head cover was never normal for me. The clothing was never normal. Though I prayed 5 times a day and I kept wudu and I fasted every Ramadan, it was it was this weird cloak that I put on every day, and so it felt very foreign. And so the relationship had a certain fakeness to it.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know if it was on his end, but it definitely was on my end. So that I just kind of swallowed with the rest of the crazy that I swallowed. I've never really had this conversation with anybody, Mohammed. So this
Great.
is this is
This is
all
a
kind of new for
yeah. This is going to be your session that you will be. We'll figure out what was in there that you
me.
did something as crazy as this.
I really haven't thought this
Oh
through.
my goodness. So, and wherever you're uncomfortable talking, you just say uncomfortable and I move on.
Sure.
So, um, so you did the point I'm trying to get to. Would you ever tell somebody that is in this type of situations is thinking about it maybe is thinking now like searching on YouTube, searching on Google, should I marry a Muslim? Or let me ask somebody that they have already been in marriages with Muslims. And I want to see how's life. Should I do that? Should I consider that? Should because of course the conscience is speaking to them. The family, of course, is speaking to them. The church probably is speaking to them. But they're putting all of that aside. But somebody that has gone this route already been down that route and knows what's the end of it, what would you tell them?
I often am asked that question. I was telling you the other day, I was asked that question once by a female teacher, Christian, like pastor, minister. And I so passionately told her that she was making the biggest mistake of her life. And that's really for several reasons. And even if you're not the second wife and you're the first, the whole idea of polygamy, first and foremost, that your world can come crashing down at any moment. You think you're in a monogamous relationship, but this man has a polygamous right. And so that's devastating. That is devastating to a woman who has grown up or has this thought, even if you're coming from a secular background, that marriage is one man, one woman, one flesh. So that's one. Two, raising children is very difficult. It is very difficult, even if the Christian woman is agreeing to convert. There's so many rituals, there's so many responsibilities that if the man is even remotely religious, even if he tells you he's not, they later become religious later in life. And you have all of these requirements. I have Christian mothers crying to me about their kids having to fast, 12 years old on the soccer team fasting in the middle of the summer. And she's like, what do I do? Why would he make my son do this? And I was like, because they think that's what Allah demands. And I was like, why didn't you think of these things? She's like, I would never dream that that somebody could make a 12-year-old fast 18 hours in the hot sun playing a sport, which is literally
And
like it's
give me one
punishment.
second. It is not this new age type of fasting that
No.
you
Yeah.
hear in the
It's
seeker
not a
friendly
Daniel
churches
fast.
that, oh, we're going to fast from cell phones. No, folks, hear me. Islamic fast is you start before the dawn till after the dusk. So before the
Yes.
sunrise, after the sunset, and you do not drink or eat, nor eat.
Nothing.
That's a big Christian fasting. I fast actually frequently. You abstain from solid food. You just don't eat food. But we can drink water as
Yes.
Christians, and but that doesn't exist in the Islamic worldview. when you fast, there is no drinking nor eating and other things. Of course, smoking or whatever, even chewing gum is not allowed. So sometimes Muslims feel guilty of swallowing their spit. So,
Yes.
so when you say somebody in America that has to fast during summer 18 hours, meaning they're dehydrated, almost
Yes.
to the point of death.
Yes. For a child in school. So the child wakes up, goes to school 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 or whatever, after school playing a sport at 4 o'clock for 2 hours on the field and can't take a drink of water until 8 o'clock at night. I mean, that's abuse. That's abuse. And she's like, I can't get my child to even cheat. She's like, because she's a Christian and her husband's wife. She's like, I just tell him to cheat. And he's like, I can't. If dad finds out, he'll kill me. And that kind of abuse to children is just horrific. It's something that people don't even calculate into the equation. The
And I
cultural
promise
alien.
you, before these two got married, this couple that we're talking about, that this husband is making, this Muslim husband making this 12 years old to fast this long during summer, before they got married, the husband told her, no, no, don't worry about it. It's
Don't
all
worry.
gonna be beautiful. You can rate, look, I'm a feminist Muslim. I'm all for you, woman. You just get married to me and I will allow you do whatever you want. Raise your child, however, it's your child. And then as soon as this marriage is consummated, as soon as this papers are signed, you're like, God knows, Hedi is somebody. I talked to a Christian woman, married a Muslim. She told me the next day they slept, they got married, they slept, they woke up. She said, I woke up right next to another it was just another person. It, I couldn't even
Hundreds of
recognize what
stories
happened.
like that.
This nice, poetic, charismatic, wonderful Middle Eastern Muslim man, it turned to some demon all of a sudden overnight.
That's the norm. That's what normally happens. And unfortunately, people think that's a strange occurrence or that's the outlier, but it's not. It's not. And I mean, with all due respect to people who want to live that life, I think it's just important that Christians don't go into that ignorant, and they realize what they're signing up for, because most of the time they don't. So the next thing is the cultural alienation. They say, oh, he's Pakistani, he's Arab, he's Iranian. He's like, oh, don't worry, my family will accept you. And there's always this sense of being alienated from the family. You don't fit. You're the outlier, especially if you're Christian. And so there's this sense that of belonging that becomes difficult to handle because they speak in another language. You're often not included. It's very, very difficult culturally as well. Um, Also, the we
I
talked
think
about.
I need to add something else to that part of it
Sure.
because it's so culturally different. And of course, Christians are looked down upon. When if anybody understands Islam, when it preaches, I'm the best of the religion, culmination of religion. I'm the fulfillment of all of this failed, changed, altered, corrupted religions. You consciously or subconsciously look down on the people that are following those type of religion outside of Islam as inferior. So, and then converting to Islam also means you become an Arab. You become Arabized. It's like
Everybody's.
just made that word, or it's a word. So you become an Arabized because now, if you want to do anything within that religion, it has the Arabic culture, Bedouin culture within it.
Right.
So somebody that is a Western first world, you're very, very foreign to everything. And the
Yeah.
process of thinking does not exist. You know that, Hadiya.
Yes.
Muslims they do not think critically.
Right.
They don't process the
I'm living
thinking.
proof of that.
Yeah, I know. It says they take that out of you. Chapter 5 of the Quran, verse 101 says, whatever we made clear to you, you don't ask questions. And then if you continue, you ask question, it leads to doubt. Doubt leads to sin. Allah will burn sinners in hell. So you're like, okay, I'm not going to go down this path. And then
Yes.
everything. And then of course when you married the Muslim culture, you married also the culture of honor and shame.
Right.
It's not about innocence, what is right and wrong, innocence and guilt. It's none of that exists anymore. It is
Right.
who sees me or not.
Right. Absolutely.
Should I continue, or this is your interview or my interview?
But
I
this is
love
a
you, Hadia.
discussion. It's not an interview. This is a discussion between us.
Lauren is
uh,
asking in the comments before you go to the next one. Lauren is asking in the comment, what was the advantage of being married for you and for
it's funny
him?
you asked that because I think there was just this sense of protection, I guess, that I wasn't in DC all by myself as a single woman. In a traditional Islamic culture, being a single unmarried woman is very unattractive. It's very it makes you really uncomfortable because all the wives don't want to be around you because then they're worried their husbands will try to marry you, which often actually happened, which was a horrible, disgusting aspect of them not seeing my husband. But it just felt safer, I guess. And for him, it was. I mean, it was. I was 20 years younger than his wife, so that was the advantage for him.
Please continue before I faint.
Yes. Actually, and one of your writers asked about my last name, and I just wanted to answer that. Can I answer that one too?
Please.
One of them, he asked about a famous horse race caller, Frank Miramati. That's my cousin. So yes,
Oh,
we are
wow.
related. Yeah,
Great.
Frank's a famous horse race caller, so he's gotten a bunch of awards for it too.
That's
And
awesome.
the beautiful thing about Frank is I had lost touch with him for about 20 years, and then he got my contact information, emailed me, and said, "Welcome to the family, welcome to the kingdom." He had converted many years before me. I didn't know
Oh,
it.
that is something, huh? That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Praise
it's a great
God.
story.
Redemption,
So
redemption, redemption. Okay, go ahead, please.
the other thing is the clothing, the head cover, the if you stay Christian, don't worry, I'm not going to make you wear that stuff. And before you know it, you're wearing all the stuff. So they tell you, oh, I don't care about the head cover, but you have to wear it around my mom, around my brother, when we go to the restaurant, when we go to the mosque, and your child has to wear it, and it becomes something that you were supposed to not be obliged to wear, and then you are obliged to wear it. And I've seen men in my community brutalize women who were not covering. In other words, they were really, if the dress was too tight, if it was too low cut, they would either smack their wives or say something horrible to them. It could be a really difficult aspect because, again, you culturally have no reference for this kind of behavior. And to you, a skirt is fine. It's right above your knees. What's the problem? And to somebody else who sees that where your skirt has to be to your ankles and then smacks you for it, you're just kind of just completely blindsided by
Yeah,
the ridiculousness of that. And
yeah,
so you can't I can't overemphasize that because again, it becomes something that you culturally are so unaware of what the boundaries are that it becomes very difficult to maintain. And
so the clothing, the practices of
all
Islam,
of them.
and then being so culturally different. These are some of the points. And then, of course, your child has to follow the religion of the husband.
Right.
What
And then
else?
ultimately if you the relationship does not, and polygamy, right? That's the big
Polygamy
one.
is the big one, of course. You're
Yeah.
thinking you're going to this marriage. It's going to stay between you and him, and then he's thinking this is just another one.
Yes.
Wow.
And then finally, the custody of your children if the relationship doesn't work out.
Yeah.
You have a huge battle. I have one friend of mine who was in Morocco, both Americans, both converts in America. I mean, in Morocco, living, just studying. Her and her husband. They've got two kids. He brings a woman, a Moroccan local, into the house and says, "This is my second wife. She's going to live with us." To an American, and she was like, "Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. No way." And he's like, "Well, guess what? You don't have a choice." And she says, "What do you mean I don't have a choice? I'm leaving. I'm going back to the States. I'm going to go to my parents. I'll take our kids." And he's like, "You are not taking our kids." And she says, "What are you talking about? They're my kids. They're Americans. I can take the kids if I want." And he's like, "We're in Morocco. You're not taking my kids."
You're in
And
Morocco. We're Muslims. This is a Muslim country. It rules with
she
Islamic
literally
law.
couldn't take her kids. Yeah. It wasn't her home country. It's not his home country, but she couldn't take the kids out. Because the embassy refused to help her. The State Department refused to help her and says, "Well, you went there. This is your problem. This is a domestic issue. You guys have to solve it."
Yeah,
And the Moroccan government said the rights are with him.
yeah.
They wouldn't interfere. So you just don't realize the kinds of situations you can get yourself in without even realizing it. And you think nobody wants to plan for a divorce, but you have to be wise and think about, well, what's going to happen if this doesn't work out?
Mhm.
And I think that's a really significant one for people to consider.
It really is. It really is. We've been contacted, Hediye. Folks, listen to me, please. We've been contacted by women in Muslim countries, in Middle East, North Africa. They have asked us that we could, if as a ministry, we could go in and rescue them because they can't even get out. And I'm talking to you about Western woman, American woman, married Muslim. They traveled for vacation, let's say to Libya, let's say
Mm.
to wherever,
Oh,
Sudan, Somalia. God knows they have contacted us if we could go and rescue them out. Because
oh,
as soon as they crossed the border, they came to the husband told the wife and the children, "I need the passport to do some immigration visas in here for you," and
yeah,
he burned the passports or tore them up or got rid of him, and now
yeah.
that woman cannot go to embassy without the permission of the husband. They're
So true.
completely stuck. They're completely kidnapped, and we cannot do anything about it. About this situation, I cannot. I don't have a personal jet to fly and have a SEAL team to take people out. But this is happening. This is the consequences. Consequence. One of the consequence of you thinking your case is different. In this
Right.
situation, this man is different. This is a good Muslim man, and
Well,
the
and see,
bad
that's the
ones are
thing is,
gone.
yeah, and it's the thing is that, well, he's not a terrorist. He's not an extremist. They naively create these two very extreme boxes that are diametrically opposed to each other, where the majority of the Muslim community is not in either of those boxes. They're smack dab in the middle. And so you don't realize that
They're
it's the
just trying to be
middle.
good Muslims.
Yes, it's the
That's it.
mainstream that has these issues. This is not the extremes that have the issues. And it's so unfortunate. It breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart.
So, what is the advice? What I mean, of course, as a minister of the Lord, I should say this is something that's very stupid. I think, well, guys, the Bible says it is it. Do not be unequally yoked.
Yoked. What relationship does light have with darkness? With what relationship does righteousness have with evil? It's very
Yeah,
clear.
that's it. I mean, he has drawn this line for us. The Word of God has given us a structure, instructions to keep us safe. It's not like for no other reason. It's just God wants His children to stay safe, and
Yes.
we go and we think, no, in our case is exception. I think I'm
Right.
smarter than God, or we tell God that, hey, I am God. I know the good and evil in this, and I'm gonna choose over my life.
Or I'm missionary dating. I'm going to convert him.
Oh,
You-
that's another
you-
big one. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
I am such a strong Christian. I'm going to marry this man and he's going to come to Jesus as a result of being married to me. Oh, such deception.
And how many cases of that have you heard that it's the other way around? That Christian
None.
converts to Islam, not the Muslim convert to Christianity. It's very little.
I
Yeah, it's strongly the other way. But when Christian
yes,
converts, the woman especially converts to Islam.
right.
Wow, wow.
One of your listeners says, I got born again 7 years into marriage. And it just reminds me of so many of the women that I talk to. That's what happens to them. They're
Mhm.
secular. They're not raised religious as Christians. They marry a Muslim man and then suddenly get born again. But it's in their blood. It's who they are, and then they're stuck. And then they're in this really difficult position because that's not what they signed up for with the husband. He's imposing all of these difficult conditions. They don't want to break up the family. It becomes a very, very tragic situation. I'm
I
sorry.
actually had someone um, here, a very strong woman again, army officer, great career, and she married. She came from a very nominal Christian. If you say, hey, just what is your religion? I think I'm Christian. I don't know. Mom and dad were Catholics or whatever. That type of Christians. And then in the army, while she was in the army, married this Iraqi when she was deployed to Iraq. Married this Iraqi translator. Her testimony is on this channel. And then it got so bad, had Hidia. This marriage was so abusive and so bad
Oh,
that she actually goes from a nominal Christian to a Muslim in this marriage. She converts to Islam, 2 years, practices Islam wholeheartedly with this hope that I'm gonna please my husband and somehow this marriage is gonna work out. 2 years later, it gets so bad, so abusive, that she starts seeking for other solutions, and she actually finds Christ in the midst of this chaos and
oh,
converts,
Lord is
becomes a born again Christian now. And of course, when the man becomes physically very abusive, and then of course after her visa situation was resolved, he comes here as a on a marriage visa, and then of course gets his green card. Pretty much he was done, and then that marriage falls apart, and now out of that, I think she was in that seven some years.
wow.
And then out of that came out a great Christian, very bold and great Christian because of what when she went
God
through.
makes beauty out of ashes, right?
Yeah, I don't think you need to make your own ashes. Do you know what
Right.
I mean? Like
Don't
that
make a
God
grave that
somehow
God's got to dig you out of.
you can do it right now and not go through all of this heartache,
Right.
headaches, problems that, and then ask God to uh, bring
Save you.
glory out of it all of a sudden. No, don't
Right.
go through it, and God has a nice Christian man somewhere for you, and then you can
Absolutely.
get married. Uh huh.
I was going to say that another piece of advice, if I can give your listeners, is protect your children. If you have survived and not done this, protect your kids from making those mistakes. I met some Egyptian Coptics who have these crosses tattooed on the inside of their wrists. And I asked them, I said, did you do that? Because, being a Christian in Egypt is not easy. It's a majority Muslim country. The Coptics are constantly getting harassed. The Catholics are constantly getting harassed. And she said, we're given this tattoo. It's put on us by our parents because they want to make sure when we start school that we don't try to deny we're Christians, that the Muslims will know we are Christians. And I was like,
Wow.
that is the best thing I've ever heard. I was like, if we would all tattoo our children before they
Yeah.
started grade school, we would be giving the world a sign. You know what? It's like robbing a house. Don't try, go to a different one. This one's going to be way too difficult. And that's really what we need to do is we need to arm our children and our household so that if the devil comes to take our children that way, we say, you know what, devil, you should try a different house because we're going to put up a fight in this house.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and I think I've seen too many parents who say, we try to love on them and we want them to feel welcomed. And I'm like, welcomed? How could you? You're about to lose your child to the devil. How could you say you want them to feel welcomed?
Yeah.
You should throw yourself bodily in front of that relationship. I mean, if your kid defies everything that you do to try to stop it, that's a different story. But you should do everything in your power to stop it. Literally everything you possibly can do to stop it.
Absolutely. I think. the virtue signaling, being nice. I don't think if you read the Bible correctly, it says be harmless as doves, but shrewd as a snakes. I mean,
Yeah.
most of the time I don't. I see the sinless likeness of Christian as a dove, but I don't think that Jesus was encouraging stupidity.
No, never.
Dumbness,
No.
being slow. I don't think God was telling us, okay, whatever comes, we just need to roll with it because we're Christians. God knows it. If you read the Bible correctly, it says the fear of God. The proverb says, "Fear of God is to hate
Head of
evil.
wisdom. Yes.
It's to hate evil, to abhor it." And this is evil that your child is flirting with this type of ideas or thinking about even converting or marrying a Muslim or any of that. And somehow you think something good is going to come out of it. Woe unto me if I ever think such a thing.
Yes, that I call
In
good
my
evil and
goodness.
evil good,
Very
and
much,
woe
yeah.
unto me. Yes, absolutely.
So, tell us, what are the signs of self deceptions? What are the if somebody now thinking about these things and say, no, no, this doesn't apply to me? What are some of these signs that no, you're thinking about it? You're still flirting with the idea. You're still dating. You're still thinking, no, my case is different, or I'm an exception to the rules. What would be
Well, I
some
mean,
of those signs?
I think we talked about it in terms of being unequally yoked. It's not just at marriage time. We shouldn't be unequally yoked. Period. We shouldn't be dating people that are not even on the same path as us. Even somebody, if you're a Bible believing Christian and you're dating somebody that's nominally Christian, that could also affect your faith. That'll also affect how your children are raised. It's we have to guard this precious gift with everything that we have. We love God with our all of our mind, our soul, and our spirit. Well, what does that mean? That means it's the greatest treasure we possess, and we wouldn't sacrifice anything for it. And if that's the case, then you don't let anyone potentially take that from you. So I meet single people all the time who are constantly telling me, oh, I'm dating, he's an atheist, he's this, he's that. I was like, why are you dating? Why are you dating an atheist? For what? You know, it's like if you want to evangelize, go on the street corner at the beach. Don't bring it into
And
your bed.
um,
Like, it's-
Hediye, Jesus didn't tell us that we can date people to evangelize. Um,
no, it's
he
not.
sent his disciples, he sent them two by two in groups. He never sent them on dating or individually. That
Absolutely.
is the bottom line. If you want to evangelize and you want to go see this Muslim, if he's a male, you take a male companion with you, or you send male forward to go and evangelize. If it's female, you do the same.
Absolutely.
And you don't do it, whatever happens in the dark, in isolation, in the corners, away from people, away from light, it will lead to sin.
Absolutely. One of your viewers asked, "What if we fought against this for a year and a half and we're unsuccessful? We're heartbroken. What could we do?" And I get asked this many times, and I'll tell you, you never give up hope, right? The Lord, His sheep know His voice, and no one can snatch them out of the Father's hand. So even if they have temporarily left, my advice is to continue praying, continue interceding, and continue creating the conversation and leaving the door open. In other words, question them about their faith. So, what do you believe? So, oh, you're praying 5 times a day. How's that? Is that difficult? I'm sure that's kind of difficult. Are you praying in Arabic? Like pepper them with questions about what they're doing, which is exhausting. If they're practicing, then it's exhausting.
It is very
So,
exhausting.
you know what I mean? So constantly ask them, but Jesus loves you and he paid the price for all your sins. Why would you want to pay them yourself? Where do you go when you die when you're a Muslim? Aren't you worried about where you go? You know, with Jesus, you could spend an eternity in paradise. Like, just keep opening that conversation. Allow them, because Muslims, especially converts, love to evangelize. So if they think they're witnessing to you about you coming to Islam, leave that door open so that you can bring them back to Christ. Use those conversations to remind them of the simple gospel.
Yep.
It's so super important to remember that they have a door back to the Lord, and that this is the one true God, and give them the opportunity to hear about the fact that He is the one true God.
That's so true. And 25 years of marriage, you're out of it, thank God. You came to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. What can be better than that? And now God has, reminds me of Esther chapter 4, verse 4, I believe. It says, for such a time as this.
Right.
So, Hediye, God brought you out for such a time as this. And
Amen.
I believe your voice is going to help a lot of people for such a time as this, because we are dealing with it more than ever in the history of the West. There has been no other time in the history of the West that we dealt with this issue this big and this fast. We have never dealt with it. And immigration of the Muslims to Europe, immigrations of the Muslims to
Yes.
the borders on through the southern border to America, and of course now we have the students that they come to America by
Right.
thousands from Muslim countries, and they are as soon as they start running out of visa or running out of time,
Yes.
the next option
Grabbing
they're
American
looking
girls.
into is look to one of those gullible, naive university college student
Yes.
that is willing to compromise on everything, that knows it's she knows that's wrong, to keep her here, keep him, excuse me, keep him here and become the savior, and thinking, oh, I'm doing something good, virtuous, and then finds herself in such a tragic situation. And I believe with all of my heart, this program and the future programs and podcasts we're going to make together, it's going to help a lot of people,
God willing. I love that.
God willing. And then tell us, where can people find you if there are women that they don't dare to ask their
Yes.
questions in comment? Where can they find you? And would you
Please,
be willing to help them?
absolutely. Whatever I can, I'd be happy to help. Unfortunately, like you, I don't have a plane to go rescue them. I wish I could. I wish I could. That would be awesome. My website is Resurrect Ministry, so singular, resurrectministry.com. And I have a comment section there. You could drop me a line. I try to answer those as fast as I can. I answer them personally. It doesn't go to some weird mailbox, it comes directly to me. And you could pose your questions. I've talked to women all over the world, in Dubai, in China, in Puerto Rico, in New York. Just, we make Zoom calls to cry together, to pray together, give advice where I can. I would love to hear from you. And then my husband and I, my traditional husband, one wife, one man, and 5 kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
We are a
Jesus.
blended family. Really, really fun. We do a devotional called Living Fearless Devotional. It's at Living Fearless Devotional on YouTube.
Mhm.
And we do it live also. So we take people's comments and we talk about the joys and challenges of a life with Jesus.
That's awesome. And I have had you on this channel before. This is your second time, and I believe that
Yes.
it's going to be the second time of many future times. And also, I met you just last week with your husband. We had
Yes.
dinner at a Persian restaurant. That was a lot of fun. So I highly recommend my sister, and you can go to her ministry, support her, and then if you have any questions, just reach out, folks. God has given His body to function in this world, that we can be protecting one another. We can be helping, guiding, advising one another. Don't isolate yourself out there, and don't
Don't do it alone.
think you're alone and do it on your own. Just reach out. We're here to help. And I just want to say thank you so very much for watching. Thank you so very much for subscribing and sharing this program with everyone everywhere, because this is such an important topic. This is such an important issue of our time, and you can help a lot of people to stay out of the trouble. Thank you so much. God bless you. Until next, God bless you.